Your dog growling at you over food or toys or anything he likes is scary. Your dog not letting guests in is inconvenient. But if both of those happen at the same time, you got a problem. In today's episode of A Dog's Soul, an Empath's Guide to Your Dog's Feelings, we're going to talk about Jay. Jay is a Cane Corso, 3 years old, and he showed aggression in both of those situations. So whenever food was involved and around guests. So we'll chat about why this is happening and how we can fix it. So stay tuned and have fun. Alright, so first of all, I did not meet Jay. This was a question I got, and I'm gonna give you my thoughts on it because it's not that rare of a situation. But still, it's very emotional, it's very draining, it's scary, and I think it's important to know that you're not alone. If you have a dog like this, you're not alone. So Jay is a Cane Corso, 3 years old, and in the beginning, totally normal puppy. He was fine with guests, he was fine with all people, dogs, toys, around food. Maybe he ate a little bit faster, I don't know, but he definitely did not growl or snarl or snap or whatever. Did not show any aggression. But around 2 years old, he started to develop this kind of aggressive behavior. So he started growling and it got worse within a year. So now he's 3 and this is scary for his mom because he is guarding from her. He guards bones, he guards his food bowl, he guards chew toys, food toys, including food puzzles, and he won't let guests in if he could help it. So he would try to block the door, he would growl at them, he would bark at them. So pretty much the same display as with food. He growls deeply, he sounds ferocious, that's what mom told me. And he's a big boy, right? A Cane Corso is a very large dog, and this can be scary for mom as well as for guests. So it is something we have to address, right? And since he was and still is very snuggly and very friendly in every other situation, and he never had any bad experiences with people, this was a surprise for his mom. Now, maybe you're saying, well, it's a Cane Corso, this is not a surprise, and you would be right, because yes, Cane Corsos are bred to guard stuff, right? This is what they're made for. And of course, this can go sideways, right? If we breed dogs to do a specific thing, they might show that specific thing. It's the same thing as for hunting dogs. They are bred to chase stuff or sniff out stuff. And they will show that in day-to-day life, as well as a Cane Corso might guard stuff. But that doesn't change the fact that it's really scary, right? If your dog growls at you and won't let you near any of his possessions, that's a tricky situation. And also, I often see people asking themselves what they did wrong because they are questioning their motives, they are questioning how they trained the dog, if they did enough prevention, if they did something wrong, if they did something to trigger this. And sometimes, yes, because typical prevention training is something like taking things away from the dog on a daily basis, constantly bothering the dog while eating, and stuff like that. And for a dog who is bred to be insecure around resources, this can trigger the resource guarding. And yes, even if it doesn't look like it, resource guarding has always an insecurity component because if you're completely sure that I will not take anything from you, you would not feel the need to guard that, right? So yes, there is insecurity involved, even though many dogs don't look like it and they can become safe in their guarding behavior. So the guarding itself looks very secure, but the emotional situation behind it is still at least part insecurity. And we as owners feel that, right? We can feel our dogs distrusting us. And this is something that's very sad for us. We question the relationship and all these things. So, yes, if you have a dog of a guarding breed and you want to do prevention training, don't do the typical stuff. So, don't reach into the food bowl. Don't take the food bowl away. Don't fight over things. So if your dog has something, don't try to wrestle it out of his mouth. And instead, you can do a little more careful prevention training. And that means you can teach your dog to trade stuff. You can teach your dog that the name actually predicts good stuff is happening. So you connect the name of your dog with good things so that whenever you come closer to a resource, you can first address your dog and then come closer. So the immediate response is, oh, good things are happening. You can add stuff to the food and you can be casual about it. So don't sneak up on your dog, right? Be open, be honest about your intentions. And that way, resource guarding can be prevented a lot better. So yes, resource guarding is normal in other species as well, us included, because we put up fences, right? We don't trust people to stay off our property, so we put up fences. And it's the same thing for our dogs. So, all right, this might have been something that has gone wrong in this case. I don't know. That I didn't get that information, but it's something I see very often. And now we know why Jay is doing that, right? He feels insecure. He feels the need to protect his things, the things that are important to him, and that includes food and his home. Now, what training often look like is people start fighting over resources. So they start to take things away from the dog. They start to do some dominance-based whatever. And those are things that increase the insecurity, because if you're already scared that somebody will take things away from you and that somebody takes things away from you, it assures you that your worries are just, right? And we don't want that. We want our dogs to learn to trust us around their things. So the whole dominance thing is not a good idea. And also, if only the option is there to make things worse, and we already have a cane corso, a big dog who is growling, if we make it worse, it becomes really dangerous. So we don't want that, right? What we can do instead is we implement good training. And good training includes adding stuff. So you start at a distance that is comfortable for your dog. For Jay, I don't know what that distance might be, but we can find that out, right? We can look for subtle cues like eating a little bit faster, eating a little bit slower, eyeballing us, things like that, stiffening up, turning the body, turning the head, all these things. So everything that's different to normal, neutral, and relaxed. And if we see that, we take a step back until we are at normal, neutral, and relaxed again. And then we add stuff. And before adding stuff, I like to use the name, because I want my dog to not get startled by me throwing things at him, right? So I use the name so the dog knows I am there and good things are coming, right? The name training has to be first so that the dog already knows that good things are coming whenever I use the name. And sometimes we need to do that with a nickname because the name is already poisoned. Sometimes we like to use the name for scolding the dog, or we use the name for recall, or we use the name for so many different things, and it has no meaning at all anymore. And that's when we need a new nickname for this training. And then we use the nickname. We can also use every other word. It really doesn't matter. It just helps the dog to know that we are coming, everything's fine, good things are happening. All right. And we keep adding. We keep adding and we try to step a little bit closer. And if the dog shows discomfort again, we get back away. And we can use that backing away as a reward as well. So our dogs will learn that we won't just come up to them and threaten them. We are actually trustworthy. We can also teach our dogs to trade stuff with us, right? The same thing we do with puppies. We can teach an adult dog as well, but we would have to start with things that the dog would not guard, right? Because if we start with things the dog already guards and we're getting close, this is uncomfortable again, and we start getting into a conflict again, and we don't want the conflict in this situation. So start with something easy. And whenever you feel tense and you feel like there could be something happening, switch to something more easy, right? This is a training that should just be light and fun and as easy as possible for both sides. It should be a little bit playful even. So if your dog likes toys and doesn't guard toys, you can use them first, right? Or even something really boring like a pen or a package of tissues or whatever. So just to teach the concept of trading, right? And for guests, it's the same thing. But now we're talking about strangers, so there is no trust involved at all. And that means that the dog really needs a very well-trained strategy. And with well-trained, I mean that it has become an automation. So some kind of starting cue, like the ringing of a doorbell, tells the dog that the strategy is starting and it's always the same. And it really depends on the dog. It depends on how the living space is structured, how your home looks like. That determines where your dog is meeting the guests, right? And it also depends on what the guests are like. So how are they interacting with dogs? How are they listening to you? So if you tell them not to engage with the dog, if you tell them to ignore the dog, will they do it or not? And what are they there for? So are they coming over for a cup of coffee? So this doesn't take long. Are they coming over to watch football? That takes longer and it might involve some very emotional gestures and stuff. Those things are completely different for the dog and they are not the same in difficulty, right? So know exactly what you want from your dog, and that's how you can tailor your strategy. It might also involve installing some safety measures, right? So your dog might need to be on a leash. Your dog might need to go behind a baby gate or in a different room. Your dog might need to have a muzzle on. It might be necessary to meet guests outside in the beginning, if that's easier. So the whole strategy should really be as easy as possible. And yes, you can change it up later, but especially in the beginning, it has to be as easy as possible. And then you train it. You train it without any distractions, so without guests, until it becomes an automation. So your dog hears the ringing of the doorbell and already knows, oh, right, this is when we are going into that room. I will get some kind of toy or whatever. Then there is some noise. Then I come out of the room and I do XYZ. Go to mom, sit on a blanket, whatever. It's always the same, and your dog can rely on this strategy to be safe, right? And if that works, you can include guests. But resource guarding is really something that can go sideways, right? You can have setbacks. The setbacks are scary, always, because you get the feeling of safety the more you train. And if you have setbacks, you lose that sense of safety again. So this is scary, but it doesn't mean that the training isn't working. It just means that either something needs adjustment, or your dog's having a bad day, or you're having a bad day, or there is something different than usual, right? Could be that you changed up the food, or you gave a new food toy and this is more valuable because it's new, right? Can be that all guests are fine, but then you invite a new friend and your dog doesn't know the new friend and he smells different, and that's more tricky. You couldn't have foreseen that, right? Because you don't know how people smell for dogs. So be aware that things can happen. And that's also why it's a lot easier to do this with a professional. Yes, you can do it all by yourself, but honestly, when I started with my dog and he gathered resources, I very often had the need to just talk to somebody if that is okay or if that's normal, if things are happening because that's just what happens, or if I'm doing something wrong. And that is why I think it's a lot easier to do this with a professional. So if you want somebody by your side, check the description, book a free call. We see if that could be me, if we're a good fit. And if you are doing it alone, check the description for the book link. I will give you a book link in the description that is really great, and it gives you a little bit more insight into the whole topic. That's it. I wish you a lot of fun training, and we'll see each other next time. Bye.